Trump says Alaska looked cordial, then Kyiv took more drone hits. Breaking tonight, U.S. intelligence will support long-range Ukrainian strikes inside Russia. That single shift moves the pressure point from the trenches to Russia's fuel network, its logistics, and the elites who keep the war funded. If you want to know why this is happening now, what it targets, and how the Kremlin is likely to respond, stay with me, because the battlefield just got a new flank, and it runs through Russia's own backyard. Quick pulse check before we unpack it. Should the U.S. help Ukraine target military and energy assets inside Russia with long-range missiles? Yes or no? And why? Drop your take below. I'll read the best comments on air. Here's what changed. Negotiations with Moscow stalled. No genuine concessions, just demands that sounded like surrender dressed up as talks. Washington is pivoting from patience to pressure, offering targeting intelligence to enable deep strikes beyond the front. Officials are also leaning on allies to coordinate similar support. One capital doing this sends a signal. A coalition doing it creates deterrence you can feel. Timing matters. Russian advances have slowed while losses climb. The Kremlin's usual fix, pay bigger enlistment bonuses, hits a budget wall when oil revenue wobbles and refineries keep catching fire. The state can promise cash, but cash comes from barrels, and barrels come from refineries that are already under stress. Drones created headaches. Missiles create outages. Think of it like this. A drone hit is tossing a pebble into a car's radiator. Real damage, but you can swap the part. A modern cruise missile is a sledgehammer to the engine block. Larger blast radius, multiple systems down at once. In a refinery, that means distillation columns, compressors, control rooms, power feeds, pipe racks. Repairs go from weeks to months, sometimes to full rebuilds. And then there's the second-order choke point sanctions already exposed. Parts. Many Russian refineries were built with Western components. With spares scarce and logistics strained, every precise strike doesn't just burn fuel, it burns recovery time. The more time you burn, the more revenue you bleed. The more revenue you bleed, the fewer bonuses you can pay, and the fewer contracts you can sign. That's the strategic effect. Move the cost center from the front line to the home front. For 2 years, Moscow tried to keep the war over there while rattling NATO borders over here, drones and jets probing airspace, transponders dark, radios quiet, hoping fear would slow Western deliveries. With Allied targeting intelligence in play, the vectors flip. Refinery fires, longer outages, and widening repair queues bring the war home to the people who profit from it. When regional bosses and elites feel that heat, pressure flows up, not down. You're going to hear escalation shouted at full volume. Expect the same script as last year when longer-range strikes were permitted in Russian-occupied areas. Direct involvement, act of war, red lines. What actually followed wasn't World War. It was a political pressure campaign aimed at slowing air defenses and long-range systems getting to Ukraine. Delay is a weapon too. Every week interceptors, radars, or missiles sit in transit is a week the Kremlin gets to grind. This move is designed to take that weapon away by making the cost of waiting visible inside Russia. There's also a hypocrisy problem baked into the talking points. Moscow insists Western help with targeting equals NATO at war, while leaning on foreign support of its own, North Korean munitions, technicians, and supply pipes, then pretending that doesn't count. You don't get to redraw the rulebook mid-game because the facts are inconvenient. Let's talk capability and optics. Dmitry Medvedev is back online with nuclear one-liners and dark jokes about submarines. Meanwhile, reality intrudes. A Russian Kilo-class boat surfaced in distress near Spain, reportedly grappling with a fuel issue inside the hull. That's not a meme. That's capability under strain, in daylight, on camera. Onshore, the innovation to protect refineries from drones, layers of metal grates and improvised cages might snag a quadcopter. They won't stop a well-planned cruise missile salvo guided by high-fidelity targeting data. And the optics couldn't be worse. The day those cages trend is the night Washington signals deeper help for long-range strikes. Deterrence signaling matters here too. Trump said he moved nuclear submarines toward Russia's coast after loose nuclear talk out of Moscow. Whether that was one hull or two, the point landed. You don't casually brandish nuclear without consequences. Medvedev's black cat in a dark room sarcasm sounds different when a real Russian sub is limping on the surface. Signaling works when capability backs it up. So why now? Because talks are stuck. Frontline momentum isn't decisive, and the fastest way to shift the Kremlin's calculus is to make the war expensive where it's supposed to be cheap. At home, in energy infrastructure, in budget stability, and in the perception that the state has things under control. Missiles guided by good intelligence compress decision time, widen repair delays, and force Moscow to choose between defending the front or defending the refineries that fund it. Either choice imposes a cost: risk the battlefield or risk the budget. The recruitment math points the same direction. Young Russians see casualty numbers, not parades. Bigger bonuses can't buy enthusiasm forever, especially when Treasury receipts tighten and the industrial base struggles with sanctions. If refineries are offline longer, the incentive machine seizes. You can't fund a grinding war by torching your own cash register. That's before we even factor in insurance premiums, transport reroutes, and regional feuds over who gets scarce fuel when the lights flicker. There are risks, and serious ones. Long-range systems demand disciplined target sets, strong documentation, and fast public facts to keep civilian harm limited and escalation controlled. Precision without restraint is just expensive chaos. The way to thread that needle is clarity. Pre-approved target categories tied to military effect, strict no-strike lists around dense civilian nodes, and rapid release of timestamps, coordinates, and battle damage assessments when propaganda storms hit. Facts beat fables when they arrive on time. What should you expect next? Fewer viral fireballs, bigger operational outages. Ukraine doesn't need fireworks. It needs downtime in Russia's fuel network. Expect a push toward nodes that take longest to fix and the parts Russia struggles most to source, paired with pressure on repair yards and feeder logistics. Expect louder Kremlin warnings about direct involvement, paired with the same gray zone tactics that avoid treaty triggers while trying to stretch NATO controllers and pilots on the eastern flank. Expect allies to tighten timelines and paperwork on transfers, because decisive effects come from tempo, not headlines. Expect more air defenses flowing to Ukraine, because missile strategy without protection invites payback. There's also a winter layer to this, even if the calendar says otherwise. Fuel networks are seasonal. If you can force long repairs into colder months, the budget pain compounds. Heating, transport, military logistics all pull from the same stress pool. The earlier the outages, the longer the squeeze. That's how you turn tactical strike sets into strategic pressure. Information operations will escalate in parallel. Some commentators will predict catastrophe by midnight. Use a simple filter for your feed. Can a pundit name one mistake their preferred side has made? If the answer is always no, you're not hearing analysis. You're hearing a payroll. The same goes for peace now, hot takes that skip the basic question: peace on what terms? If the answer is Ukraine concedes because Russia threatens, that's not peace. That's a pause before the next invasion. There's a diplomatic track embedded in all this, even if it feels far away. Pressure creates incentives. Incentives create openings. The more expensive it is to keep refineries running and soldiers paid, the more attractive real terms become. Not slogans, terms, borders, security guarantees, air defense permanence, and accountability mechanisms that survive election cycles. Long-range strikes aren't a substitute for diplomacy. They're leverage for it. Let's circle back to first principles. The Kremlin tried to win by fear. Fear of escalation, fear of economic shock, fear of alliance fracture. The move to support deep strikes makes a different fear matter more inside Russia. A fear of systems breaking faster than they can be fixed. When local bosses, refinery owners, and power brokers start making those phone calls, narratives shift. Not because a speech changed minds, but because the math did. If you live along NATO's eastern edge, this also clarifies a basic rule. Borders are borders. Airspace is airspace. Announced shoot-down policies reduce risk. Ambiguity invites accidents. That's why Poland's identify or we engage line makes sense. It's not escalation, it's sovereignty. The cleaner the rules and the quicker the proof, the less room there is for manufactured drama. Bottom line, this is leverage, not theater. Missiles with good intelligence don't win the war in a week. They make the wrong people in Moscow feel the right kind of pain, budget pain, delay pain, vulnerability pain. Until negotiations aren't a stalling tactic, they're the best option on the table. That's the point. Your turn, help or halt. Should the U.S. and allies sustain intelligence support for deep strikes until Moscow accepts verifiable terms, or pause and hope a better negotiating partner shows up? Tell me in the comments. If you want fewer hot takes and more straight analysis, tap subscribe and turn on alerts. I'll track what happens next and why it matters to your wallet, your energy bill, and the security picture headed into winter.